Beautiful. Thank you, thank you, thank you. That's one of my all-time favorite songs. So, we are here. It's the second week of January already. Has everybody still started to get used to doing 2017 on your checks, or are we all still doing 2016? I'm usually pretty good through this week. It's next week that I forget. And anyway, here we are. As Kevin mentioned, most Centers for Spiritual Living do a series in the month of January called Back to Basics. And what we do is we look at the principles that were outlined in Ernest Holmes' seminal work, The Science of Mind. And in that book, for those of you who know it cover to cover, the first 4 chapters are an overview. It's kind of an executive summary, if you will, of the basic principles that he then takes 438 pages to elaborate on through the rest of the book. But the first 4 chapters are a nice, short, little good summary of his basic principles. And so it works really well for us to talk about one each week. And so today we're going to talk about the thing itself. The thing itself, which of course is God. The thing itself. Now I want to give you a little background on Ernest Holmes. Many of you already know this, but I've gotten this question several times in the last maybe 6 to 8 weeks. And the question I've been getting is, how are Centers for Spiritual Living and Unity related? That's the question I've been getting. But I think I want to talk about Ernest Holmes to set this up, and it'll give you some information on that. So Ernest Holmes was born in Maine, a huge family. He and his brother went out west to kind of very much spiritual seekers. They came out to California. Ernest himself was actually ordained as a divine science minister. And then he started to write the book, The Science of Mind. He wrote a version in 1926. It came out. It's still out there. It's in the public domain. You can download it in a million different places. And then he revised it again in 1938 to become the book that we sell and teach out of, called The Science of Mind. The thing about Ernest is that he never really wanted to start a church. He just wanted to teach these principles to people of all religions. But Ernest had a great teacher. His teacher, he had many actually. Thomas Troward was one. He was a big devotee of Plato. But the only person that he really studied with in person was a woman named Emma Curtis Hopkins. She's known as the mother of New Thought. The thing that's interesting about Emma is that she started her career with Mary Baker Eddy, who was the founder of Christian Science. So when people say, a lot of times when they hear the words religious science, they go, do you see doctors? Yes, we see doctors. But the similarities are there because the roots all go back. But Emma Curtis Hopkins had studied under Mary Baker Eddy, and then she had these students. Her very first students were a couple named Charles and Myrtle Fillmore. And Charles and Myrtle Fillmore went on and founded the denomination of Unity. And then about 25 years later, not 25, about 15 years later, Emma had 2 more students. Their names were Nona Brooks and Melinda Kramer. And these 2 went on to found Divine Science. And then, toward the end of her life, Emma Curtis Hopkins she always stayed true to her Christian roots, but she expanded her teaching beyond just Christianity and started to study Islam and Buddhism and Hinduism and some of the other religions. So by the end of her life, her teaching was much more broad, and she really looked for the golden thread of truth that ran through every religion. And then toward the end of her life, she had one last student in 1924, and it was Ernest Holmes. And of course, he went on to found religious science. So all of the 3 New Thought denominations, the founders of all 3 of them had the same teacher in Emma Curtis Hopkins. So for those of you who periodically go to Unity, or once in a while have heard of a Divine Science Church, or read Emmett Fox, who was a Divine Science minister, or then go to CSLs and you go, God, this all sounds the same. What's the difference? They're very subtle. But the big thing that Ernest Holmes brought to the table that was different is this idea that there is the thing itself that can be found through any religion, any path, any format, because God is all there is. It is the thing itself. It is first cause. It is the divine mind. It is all there is. So that's the thing itself. Basically, I could stop now. Don't worry, I'm not going to. But that's the first tenet of Ernest's teaching. Now, the thing he says about God, let's call it God. I know, if you have God baggage, if you have baggage with that word, just hear in your head, spirit, divine mind, the universe, universe, whatever, because it doesn't matter what we call it. Ernest Holmes does a great little thing on one of his Live Again CDs where he says, if we call God a potato, and we keep saying that it's a potato, we could use the word potato, but we all know what we're talking about, regardless of the word we're using. So if you have God baggage, just in your own mind, erase that out and put something else in. I particularly like God because I think it says what I mean. But God, here's where we get the God baggage. God is the principle of love. That's what Ernest Holmes says. God is a principle first and foremost, and that principle is love. Now, we get the God baggage because we don't think of God as a principle. We think of God as an anthropomorphized, immature, emotionally unintelligent man sitting up in the clouds, judging and criticizing us all the time. That is 6,000 years of human baggage projected on to the thing itself. But that is not what it is. And that's why we have God baggage, is because we say God and people think it's the scary guy in the clouds who's going to strike us down. But God is the principle of love. So like all principles, it is consistent. It does not have these vagaries and these whims of, I like Lori, so she's going to heaven, but Suzanne, no. God is a principle. It's a principle. Now, I love the term Santa God. So we kind of think of Santa God. We think of God as Santa Claus. Somewhere along the line, we got those two conflated, and so, we got Santa God. If I'm naughty, I'm going to hell, and if I'm nice, talk about the ultimate Christmas present or lump of coal. It's either heaven or hell. There you go. But God is not whimsical like that. God is not that arbitrary. God is a consistent principle. Now, I think we kind of intellectually know that, but here's what I want us to do today. I want us to understand that God, that principle is love. I think that there's a piece that many New Thought churches miss. We stay up here. We thought that's this New Thought. Well, what? It all happens in the head, right? Maybe. It originates in the head. But the principle is love. So how do you know when you're living in principle? Does it feel like love? Yeah, you can feel it. If you're trying to figure out, if you're sitting there going, well, they shouldn't be doing that, that's out of principle. Guess who's out of principle? Because you're not in that space of love. God is an emotional reaction. God moves through us emotionally. Yes, thought plays a role. But we have to feel it. When we feel love, isn't that why we love to go out in nature? Can't you just kind of let go of traffic and worry and stress and work and just kind of be in this altered state where you just feel good even if you can't quite figure out why? That's that God life flowing through you. It's not flowing through your brain. The principle's flowing through your heart. God is the principle of love. And that's how we know. I'm teaching this class, Living Your Life Purpose. How do I know my life purpose? How do I know? My education says I should do this. My mother says I should do this. All of my experience tells me I should do this. What feels like love? What feels like love? Because that's how God speaks with us. That's where the principle is. It is a consistent, constant principle of love. Now, can we step outside of that and feel not love? Sure we can. Sure we can. That's where free will comes in. But the principle of God is love. Love works through law. That's the second thing he says in this chapter. Love works through law. Love points the way. Law makes the way possible. That's Ernest's famous quote from this section. Love points the way. Law makes the way possible. What's the law? The law is that it works through our intentions. It is always immutable. It works through our thoughts, beliefs, and feelings. Again, New Thought has this thing where we always think it just works through our thoughts. Not quite. It has to work through our feeling of it. But this law is immutable. That means it always works. That means God working in principle as law. So, it doesn't matter what you want. It matters who you are. Because if you are in a place of anger and bitterness going, I want love and joy, you're not going to get love and joy because you're operating against the law. It's like going to the top of a building and jumping off and saying, I want to fly. It's not going to work because you're going against the immutable laws of the universe. It always works this way. You hear a lot about the law of attraction. You know, The Secret about 10 years ago came out all about the law of attraction, and everybody who writes on this topic has the law of attraction in their title of their book or in the headline because it's a real buzzword. I love the law of attraction because the law of attraction is the only law that by its very existence will prove that it doesn't exist. Think about that for a minute. The law of attraction by its existence will prove that it doesn't exist. Because if you're saying, this stuff doesn't work, this stuff doesn't work, this stuff doesn't work for me, nothing ever works for me, I've been thinking this and it won't work, guess what? It won't. And the reason it won't is the same immutable law that you're saying doesn't work. You are invoking the law that you think doesn't work to create something that doesn't work. But the good news in all of that is you can do the opposite. You can invoke the law to work for you. You can invoke the law to work for you because it always works consistently, predictably, every single time. It's like electricity. Does anyone here, maybe John does, maybe, does anyone here know how electricity works? Don't feel bad if you don't. I just figure if anyone's going to raise their hand, it's going to come up here. Does anyone know? Okay, Daniel. But not many people know how electricity works. We know where it comes from. We know how to harness it. We know that it works. But we don't know how it works. But it works, right? We pretty much know that it works every single time. Unless there's a power outage, you can walk up to a light switch and turn it on, and it will come on, right? Now notice that there is no dark switch. There is no dark switch. You can't all of a sudden flip a switch and have like inky black darkness descend down here into this. There's only the light switch. That's the thing itself. But the law works every time. Now the other thing about the law, as I just said about the law of attraction, like electricity, it works when we use it properly. It's great. And when we use it improperly, you get electrocuted. John Proctor says, electricity will cook the man's dinner, and it'll also cook the man. So, if we use it correctly, it works. And we can use it correctly because it works the same every time. It is a scientific immutable law. Now, how do we activate that law? It's activated through our intentions. The law is activated through our intentions. It follows our intentions. We activate this law by our intentions. But here's where I really want you guys to put aside everything you've ever heard in any New Thought church from me. Well, not everything from me, because a lot of those things are pretty good. But this one, anything. And think about this in a new way. I want us today to have a new thought about this. Intention doesn't come from your thoughts. Intention may start there, but it comes from your heart. Ernest Holmes said, it is not the thought, but the feeling back of it that does the work. More amazingly, recently there's an experiment called the heart map experiment. Thank you, Eugene, for reminding me of this. The heart map experiment. So this was a group of scientists. There's a book out there called Heart Map if you're interested. Some scientists, cardiologists wondered, it was written by a guy who wondered why some of his heart patients who aren't that bad die, and some who have everything wrong with them, quadruple bypass, continue to live. So this experiment, they decided to see what the heart does. So they took a solution of plasma or whatever, and they put strands of DNA in it, and they divided people into 3 groups. And one group took the solution and They just thought about unraveling the strands of DNA. So they held the solution in their hand, and they just focused their mind on unraveling the DNA. They just focused their mind, visualized it, focused their mind on unraveling the DNA. Another group didn't focus on anything. They just got into a place of love and appreciation. They just went to their happy place, if you will. They didn't focus on anything. They just were in this state of bliss. They weren't thinking about the recent election. They weren't thinking about, the new year or their checkbook or anything. They were just in a place of love and appreciation. Neither of these two groups had any impact on the DNA. Neither of them. The third group got to their happy place. They got into that feeling of love and appreciation, and then they introduced a single thought, the intention of unraveling the DNA. They kept their thoughts clear of anything else that might take them out of that place of love and appreciation. They just introduced this one thought, the intention. 25% of the DNA got unraveled. It's not the thought, it's the feeling back of it. I think we come and we hear that our thoughts are creative, and to watch your thoughts, don't think anything that you don't want to have show up in your life. I want us to erase that. Don't feel anything that you don't want to have show up in your life. If you're angry, you're going to get more anger. If you're depressed, you're going to get more depression. It is the impulse from the heart that goes out into the field, into this immutable principle. And when we are feeling that place of love, when we are feeling in the flow of that, we are vibrating at the frequency of the divine. We are in alignment with the universal principle that is God. We are acting as the thing itself. And when we step out of that, which we have free will, we can do. We can get angry. We can be pissed off at the guy who cut us off in traffic. We can project all sorts of things about how that guy's a jerk and blah, blah, blah. We can do all that. We have free will. But guess what you're doing? You are inviting that to come into your life. You are setting the intention that that's where you're going to be. Now, I understand that this is hard. I think we think that our emotions are out there, or that the impetus for our emotions are out there. Things happen, and they make us happy. Or they happen, and they make us angry. Or they happen, and they make us sad. Or they happen, and they make us peaceful. But the shift here that Ernest Holmes asks us to go to is that we control our emotions. We control them, and that intention of controlling our own emotions is what activates the law. Now, you can't look at something you don't want and feel good. You can't look at a condition, let's say that you don't have enough money to pay your bills. You can't sit there and look at your checkbook and feel great. But the more you look at your checkbook going, I don't have enough money to pay my bills, I don't have enough money to pay my bills, what am I going to do? I don't know how to pay my bills. No, I got to think positive, think positive. I know there's enough, I know there's enough, I know there's enough. And then you look down and there's not enough money to pay your bills. Still, this stuff doesn't work. How many of you had an experience like that? It's because you didn't get out of the emotional state of fear and anxiety that you're not going to have enough. So here's what you have to do. Don't look at your checkbook. Don't look. Don't look. Set the intention that there's going to be enough, and then, go see a movie. Read a book. Go take a hike. Do something that makes you feel good. Don't swing into action from a place that there's not enough, because your intention is what's activating the law. So if you set up the intention that there's not enough, it doesn't matter what you say or what you think. If you're in that stressed out feeling place, and you know, right? Got butterflies in your stomach, your palms are sweaty, your mouth is dry, and you can say positive affirmations till you're blue in the face. They're not going to work if you don't have the intentionality of your heart behind it. Because God is love. God is the principle of love. And the law follows love. It doesn't follow anger. Now this is so backwards from the way we're taught. We're not taught to know how we feel very much. I mean, it's hard to, in the moment, recognize how we feel. That takes practice. And we just aren't very practiced at it. We didn't learn it in school. Our teachers didn't tell us. We just, don't know. But it can be done. So practice how you feel. Practice controlling how you feel. And if you see something that makes you angry, if you're watching something about the inauguration and you are upset, turn off the TV and do something else. Don't continue to watch and go, I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know how this man got to be president. I don't. Or the opposite. Yay! I'm so excited. This is going to be it. You got to control it inside. You got to control your feeling inside. And when you control the feeling inside, then whatever happens out here just happens. Our intention is activated, is what activates the law. Our intention. But it's not just our thought. So, we have to remember that God is the principle of love. And when we are tempted to think things that are unloving, because we're angry, because we're hurt, because we're whatever, that's in you. The other person did nothing to make you angry. You're making yourself angry by choosing to focus how they're looking at it in an unloving way that is not like the thing itself. God, don't you hate that? That would be so much easier if it were all their fault. But, sorry. The thing itself is love. Unconditional love. Are we all looking for unconditional love? Mm-hmm. Okay, so stop waiting for a condition to change before you love. If they do this, then I'll love them. If someone else does this, then I'll love it. If I get the right job, then I'll love that. That's conditional love. Love first. Because God is the principle of love. And that love follows the law. So you can want it to be different. You can wish it to be different, but it won't. If you jump off a building, it doesn't matter if you're a good person or a bad person, you're going to hit the ground. So you can wish that things are different, but you have to use the law. And you use the law then by activating it through your intention, which is not only your thought, that's good, but it must be followed by the feeling of it. That's why in New Thought we frustratingly say, you have to act as if you already have it. Have you guys ever heard a minister or practitioner say, oh no, you have to act as if you already have it? And you want to smack them. Because if you already have it, then you'd be happy. If you already had it, then you could calm down. If you already had the relationship, then you'd be in love. If you already had the money, then you wouldn't be worried. You're backwards. You've got to find a way to stop worrying, and the money will come. You got to find a way to be loving, and then the relationship will come. You got to find a way to do that, because that's where the intentionality comes, from the heart, not the head. Now, as I said, I've talked about Ernest Holmes' first chapter, The Thing Itself. You can go read it, and you'll find a lot about Ernest Holmes talking about thought. He talks a lot about thought. And he's not wrong, of course. Thought is a component of it. But the thing that he says over and over in that chapter that isn't always highlighted, that I want to highlight today, is that you've got to have the feeling back of it. So this week, let's practice the feeling of God rather than the thought. Let's pray. So what I recognize in this moment is that there is only the one thing happening, the thing itself. There is this one divine life, this one power, this one essence, this universal intelligence, this first cause, this mother of creation. And this moves through all people, all faiths, all religions, all ideas. And it is the energy of love. It is the energy of that unconditional substance where we feel good. And so recognizing that this love is with us always and that we have access to it every single moment, regardless of the conditions of the world, regardless of what we are faced with. We are one with this loving presence, this loving power that is as near to us as our very breath, that calls us to love more. And what I recognize for each one of us is that we are connected to this. It moves through us, as us, it is one with us. And that we activate it by our intention. It works perfectly and predictably as we intend. And so I know for each one of us here today that we have a new understanding about this, that we are committed to practicing the feeling of God rather than the thought. That we are committed to going out into this world a little more loving, a little more forgiving, a little more willing to give people the benefit of the doubt, a little more in touch with that heart space that produces its own energy field, that is itself a field of creation. And so as we accept this truth, as we embrace this truth, I know for each one of us that we have a new thought today about feeling. We have a new feeling today about thought. That we have a new idea overall about how we can express and experience more God in our lives and in the world. And so recognizing this, embracing this, I just give thanks. I know that that state of gratitude is how we get into that place of alignment with the one, how we feel that love that is always flowing. And so as we feel that gratitude, we feel it for whatever we need comes from that space of gratitude. And so as we feel it first, we can release these words knowing that they are done, knowing that we are one with the divine, absolutely, always, in all ways, knowing that we have a new understanding and that life is meant to be good all the time. And so I just know that this is the truth. I embrace it. I let it be so as I gently release it into the arms and the consciousness of the divine, calling it good. And so it is.
Yes.
That work for you, Eugene?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good.
That's the Reverend Dr. Judy Morley. Yes.